We better get to the Harold the Hates about his snake bites.
Yes, all right, do the intro.
He's going to talk about snake bites in Ipswich, including a dramatic savings of a family of 5 from certain death. Harold, are you there?
I am, Danny. Look, it's certain death with snakes, but with it Berlin Wall, I've been there. I've got pieces of it. It was pretty scary as well.
I got pieces of it. I got it framed with them. I ran the 2K beach run there. Did all right too. I was old.
Yeah, well,
anyhow, let's get into this story.
You're old but fit, and you're younger now though. But this story, this is like it's a family of 5 was saved from certain death. But I'll start from 1888. That's when Patrick Sullivan, he was a shearer living in Basin Pocket. Now, one night after midnight, he was feeling thirsty, and so barefooted, he went to the tank out the back for a drink. That's when he was bitten on the foot by a snake. Now, the wound was sucked by his friends, as friends do. Then Dr. Albert Dunlop, who was one of the original trustees of the Ipswich Girls Grammar School, he scarified the wound. In other words, he cut the flesh out from around the bite, which is what they did back then. Anyway, Sullivan survived. But you see, back then, the treatment was often worse than the snake bite itself. And then in 1891, a woman named Mrs. Schubel lived on a farm at Kirchheim, which was the original name of Hakesley. She was bitten by a whip snake just above her ankle and rushed to Dr. William von Losberg in Ipswich. Now, Dr. von Losberg cut the wound in 2 places. The blood flowed, and strangely, it was black in colour. Strychnine was injected, ammonia and spirits administered, and despite this treatment, Mrs. Schubel also survived. Then in 1894 at Blantyre, just outside of Ipswich, 4-year-old Francis McFarlane was playing outside after dark when he stepped on a snake and was bitten. But he didn't tell anyone. So he was put to bed, and the household was awoken by the noise of gurgling in the boy's throat. He died just moments later. Now, Francis's uncle was Albion Hayne, the accountant who invented the first ever car laps in Ipswich history, and his grandfather was John McFarlane, the Ipswich mayor. And then in 1896, there was a run of snake bites in Ipswich. One was a 14-year-old girl, Clara Wilkes. Her father was a miner at Tivoli. Clara was walking barefooted across a paddock when a black snake bit her just above the ankle. She survived that. But only months later, it was awful because months later, she was allegedly raped and no charges were ever laid. And then also in 1896, this is snake bite, snakes were everywhere, there was another 14-year-old, John Hoffman from Ebenezer in Ipswich. John was bitten on the foot and began vomiting. Now, the usual treatment was applied and he survived. But across the district, his Hoffman family were dropping like flies. You see, just some years earlier, a 15-year-old Hoffman girl was walking home in North Ipswich when a brown snake bit her on the ankle. The wound was scarified by Dr. von Losberg. She recovered, but there was then James Hoffman. He was driving a spring cart when he was thrown out. Cart landed on top of him, killing him instantly. And there was a second John Hoffman. He worked at the Ipswich Railway Workshops. He was killed when his head was crushed between 2 carriages. But back to the snake bite in 1896. Ephraim and Elizabeth Hughes of Bundamba had 9 children, and at least 2 of them were bitten by snakes. So it's a wonder any survived. First was 11-year-old Frederick Hughes. He was playing in a paddock when a black or brown snake bit him on the toe. His father scarified the wound and sucked it.
The youngster survived. 9 years later, his brother, 14-year-old Edwin Hughes, was bitten on his big toe by a brown snake. The wound was cauterized or burned with a heated knife or similar and sucked by his brother. Edwin also survived. But of all the snake bites in the history of Ipswich, the most dramatic was in 1909 when a family of 5 was saved from certain death. A brown snake tried to enter a house where the 5 offspring of Glendon Duke were sleeping. Their mother, Nettle, furiously attacked the snake and quickly dispatched it, but not before the snake had bitten her on the foot and cheek. The osteologist, Mr. Dennis Buckley, was called and applied the Brunton snakebite remedy, or permanganate of potash, with injections of strychnine. Poor Nettle became comatose, but she survived. It is amazing what mothers will do for their children, because it was only a few months earlier that the Ipswich auctioneer Henry Bostock had mated Nettle with Brendan Duke, who was his champion fox terrier. In case you didn't realise, Nettle was a dog. And she lived with the same Bostock family of the Bostock Chambers building on the corner of Brisbane and Edinburgh Streets, just up the road from the West Bremer radio studios right in the middle of town. So there's a snake bite history out there everywhere you go, including incredible stories of what mothers will do for their children.